No one saw it coming. Not the Galactic Council, not the alien empires that had once claimed dominion over the stars, and certainly not the scattered human colonies that still whispered about it like a legend. They called it the Black Ship, a ghost from humanity's darkest hour, a relic of vengeance and pride. It had vanished decades ago after the last Great War, lost in the silence between galaxies. But now it was back. The first to see it were miners on the edge of the Perseus Arm. Their sensors picked up something massive, metallic, silent, and moving against the light of a dying star. At first, they thought it was debris, maybe a derelict cruiser left over from the wars. But then the shadow turned, revealing a hull blacker than space itself, etched with faint scars that glowed like embers. One transmission escaped before their feed went dead. It's human. It's coming this way. Within hours, the entire sector was on alert. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session, every species arguing over what the return could mean. Some believed it was a myth reborn, others a weapon that should have never existed. But deep down, they all knew. If the Black Ship had returned, it meant humanity was done being quiet. After the Earth Wars, when humans had scattered to the corners of the galaxy, the Council had imposed strict sanctions. No warships, no planetary defenses, no fleets of their own. Humanity was to remain under observation, a polite way of saying under control. But humans had a habit of remembering, and beneath the layers of fear and exile, they had been building, in silence, in the shadows, for decades. Now the silence was breaking. The Black Ship didn't arrive with an army. It didn't need to. It was the army. Entire fleets once trembled at its name. Forged from obsidian alloys and powered by a reactor so advanced the Council had deemed it illegal, the ship had been the last stand of Earth before their defeat. Its captain, unknown, unrecorded, erased from history, had vanished with it into the void. No one had ever discovered where it went. Until now. The ship appeared in orbit around the ruined colony of Virel Prime, a planet once home to 5 million humans, burned to ash after a containment operation by Council forces. For years, it had remained lifeless, a scar on the map. When the Black Ship descended into its orbit, sensors all over the sector lit up. Energy readings spiked beyond known limits. The ship's hull began to pulse faintly, like a heartbeat. Then came the signal. It wasn't in any alien code. It wasn't in the Council's trade language. It was pure Terran Standard, a dialect banned from interstellar broadcasts. Just 3 words repeated over and over, every syllable cold, calm, and deliberate. We remember Virel. That was all it took. The Council's networks went into chaos. Worlds began to panic. Old enemies of humanity, races that had once fought against Earth, sent fleets toward the outer rim. But the humans didn't move. They didn't respond to hails. They didn't explain. They just waited. For those who lived through the wars, the memory came flooding back, the day humanity stood alone against the galaxy. No one had ever understood why they fought so fiercely, why they refused surrender even when outnumbered 100 to 1. To most species, survival was a matter of logic. But to humans, survival was something sacred, something worth destroying everything else for. Aboard the Black Ship, silence filled the command deck. The crew moved like ghosts, each one marked by loss. They had seen what the Council's peace truly meant. Entire colonies stripped of rights, human research restricted, even their history rewritten. They weren't here for diplomacy. They were here for reckoning. But even among humans, not everyone agreed. In secret, human representatives still sat within the Council, pretending loyalty, playing politics to keep their kind alive. When news of the ship's return reached them, they panicked. They feared it would undo everything, decades of fragile compromise, quiet rebuilding, and secret alliances. They tried to send messages, warnings, pleas. None were answered. Out on the edge of the Milky Way, the black ship drifted alone, its dark hull gleaming against the stars. In its lower hangars, human engineers worked in silence, reactivating drones, calibrating weapons that hadn't seen light in 50 years. The hum of power ran through the decks like a living pulse. The ship wasn't just waking up, it was remembering. Inside the council chambers, arguments turned to shouting. One species demanded immediate retaliation, fearing another human uprising. Another warned against aggression, reminding everyone of what happened last time, when the council underestimated Earth's will to fight. The memory still lingered, a single human fleet breaking through 9 defensive lines, turning entire planets to dust to protect their people. Yet no one could predict what the humans wanted now. Revenge? Justice? Or something deeper? On one remote moon, a small listening post picked up a faint transmission, encrypted, human origin. The operator almost dismissed it until he realized the coordinates it contained didn't point to Virel Prime or Earth. They pointed to the Council's own capital world. He hesitated before forwarding it. He'd seen what happened the last time humans sent warnings. They weren't threats, they were promises. And now, as the black ship's engines roared to life, the stars seemed to dim around it. The ship began its slow, deliberate course toward Council space. Every sensor in the quadrant followed its movement. Every fleet scrambled to intercept. But deep down, every commander knew they were too late. The ship wasn't coming for war. It was coming for truth. Inside its bridge, the human commander stood at the viewport, eyes fixed on the distant glow of the galactic core. His voice was calm, almost gentle when he spoke. "They took everything from us," he said quietly, "and they thought we'd forget." The crew remained silent, their faces lit by the cold glow of starlight. He continued, "We warned them once. They didn't listen. This time..." He looked toward the stars and a faint smile crossed his face. "We'll make them remember." Outside, the black ship's massive silhouette glided through the void like a storm about to break. Fleets gathered ahead, forming lines of defense across the void. To the Council, it looked like preparation. To the humans aboard, it looked like history repeating itself. Somewhere within that growing tension between fear and fate, one truth lingered in the silence. The galaxy had forgotten what humanity truly was. They thought the species that once burned their own world to win freedom would stay broken forever. But the black ship was proof they were wrong. And as it crossed the threshold into Council territory, every star seemed to flicker, like the galaxy itself was holding its breath. The comms officer turned, voice trembling. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Council. They're demanding we turn back." The commander didn't answer. He simply watched the stars ahead, his expression unreadable. Then, after a long pause, he whispered just loud enough for the crew to hear, "Then they should have thought of that before they burned Virel." The engines flared, the stars warped, and the black ship vanished into faster than light. Somewhere ahead, 1,000 fleets waited. Somewhere behind, humanity's silence ended. The galaxy had just realized the reckoning had begun. The black ship tore through faster-than-light space like a spear of shadow, its wake rippling through subspace currents that had been silent for decades. Inside, every corridor hummed with low energy, the steady pulse of power resonating through its hull like a heartbeat. No one spoke. There was no need to. Everyone aboard understood what their return meant. Humanity had spent years pretending. They had smiled at the Council's ambassadors, signed their treaties, and sent their children to alien academies. They had done everything to appear compliant, rebuilding quietly while the galaxy looked away. But beneath that calm surface, a storm had been growing, a storm made of memory, loss, and something far older than fear. In the command center, the crew stood around the central display. The holographic projection of the galaxy glowed faintly, dozens of red markers pulsing across council space. Each one represented a human colony that had been destroyed, displaced, or stripped of rights. The commander's gaze lingered on them one by one. No one dared interrupt the silence that followed. "They erased our worlds," the commander finally said, his voice low but steady. "But they couldn't erase who we are." The youngest officer, her uniform freshly pressed, hesitated before asking, "Sir, do you really think the council fears us still?" The commander looked up at her. "Fear never left them," he replied. "They just convinced themselves it was gone." Far across the galaxy, the council's capital glistened beneath twin suns. Its sky was lined with defense stations, trade ships, and the ever-watchful eyes of surveillance satellites. Inside the grand chamber, representatives from 100 species filled the air with voices, each arguing over what to do. One of them, a reptilian diplomat, slammed his claws against the table. "You don't understand! That ship was forbidden! The humans swore it was destroyed!" Another, older and calm, raised a tendril in protest. "And yet it returns! We should listen before we strike! If they've truly rebuilt, war will burn us all!" But the council chancellor, tall and silver-skinned, leaned forward, her tone sharp. "War was never the problem. Humanity is. They defy balance. They defy order. They must be reminded of their place. Again." The chamber fell into uneasy silence. Everyone remembered what reminding humanity had cost last time. Entire fleets reduced to dust, planets burning for weeks, and humanity fighting to the very end before vanishing into the stars. No one had ever truly understood how they had managed to build something like the Black Ship in the first place. The technology was unlike anything seen before, part human, part something else. Rumors said it wasn't built on Earth at all, but deep within a dying system where gravity itself twisted reality. Others whispered it had been a joint project with a forgotten species, one that disappeared soon after the wars ended. The council had buried those stories, but now they were rising again. Back aboard the ship, the crew prepared for what was to come. Massive energy conduits pulsed beneath the decks, lighting the walls with faint blue veins. Engineers walked among reactors humming with restrained power. In the lower bays, dormant machines stirred, drones shaped like shards of metal, built for defense, reconnaissance, and precision. None of them carried the markings of conquest. They were made for protection, for humanity's survival. In the quiet of the observation deck, one of the older officers watched the stars streak past. His face was lined with time, his eyes distant. He had lived through the last war as a child, when the sky above Earth turned red and the council fleets descended. He remembered the day the message came. Earth had fallen, humanity scattered. He whispered to himself, "We swore we'd never forget." A voice answered from behind. "And now they'll remember us too." It was the commander. He stood beside the viewport, the reflection of the stars glinting in his eyes. "But we're not here for vengeance," he continued quietly. "We're here for truth, for every world they silenced, for every name they erased. The galaxy deserves to know what they did." The officer nodded slowly, though doubt flickered across his face. "And if they try to stop us?" The commander's expression hardened. Then history repeats itself. The ship emerged from faster than light, dropping into real space near the outer edge of Council territory. The void around them shimmered with activity: scouting probes, automated defenses, patrol ships. The crew held their breath as alarms echoed faintly through the decks. The Black Ship's stealth systems activated, bending light, masking its energy signature. To scanners, it became little more than a shadow, but shadows can move. Through the viewport, distant flashes of light marked the formation of Council fleets, their warships aligning in massive, ordered ranks. They looked like walls of fire and steel. To anyone else, it would be overwhelming. To the humans, It looked like a challenge. The communications officer turned. "Sir, they're broadcasting again. They're demanding identification." "Send them silence," the commander replied. The officer hesitated, then nodded. The message channel closed. Only the hum of the engines filled the air again. Below deck, in the archives room, an artificial intelligence stirred to life. Its voice was faint, synthetic, yet oddly human in tone. "Commander," it spoke over the comm line, "I have completed retrieval of historical logs." "Display them," the commander ordered. Holograms filled the room, images of ruined cities, council soldiers marching through human settlements, burning banners, forced evacuations. It was all documented, sealed away in restricted databases that the council had sworn never existed. The AI had recovered them from forgotten fragments of the old human network. The crew watched in silence. Every frame was a reminder, every scene a scar. "Do you think showing this will change anything?" one of them asked softly. "It's not about changing them," the commander answered. "It's about reminding us why we're here." The AI's voice returned. "Incoming encrypted transmission detected. Human origin. Source unknown." The commander exchanged a look with his officers. "Put it through." The transmission flickered onto the main screen. A face appeared. Weathered, tired, human. "Black ship, this is Haven Station," the voice said urgently. "You need to turn back. The Council has mobilized the entire Fourth Fleet. They've declared you a threat to galactic stability. If you proceed, they'll—" Static cut through the signal, then silence. The commander stared at the blank screen, his jaw tightening. "Trace it." "Already gone," the AI responded. "The source was destroyed moments after transmission." The room fell into heavy quiet. No one spoke for a long time. Then the commander finally said, "So it begins." Outside, the stars gleamed cold and distant. Fleets continued to gather like storm clouds across the void, their lights forming a wall between the Black Ship and the Council's heart worlds. The air aboard felt thicker now, the weight of what was coming pressing down on every soul aboard. Somewhere deep in the lower decks, a group of young crew members huddled together, their voices hushed. "Do you think we can win?" one whispered. Another shook his head. "Maybe it's not about winning. Maybe it's about being heard." The words lingered, soft but powerful. Humanity had been silenced once before. But silence was never their way. Every struggle, every rebellion, every desperate fight across history had always started with a single truth. Humans refused to be forgotten. As the Black Ship drifted closer to the invisible borders of Council control, its engines dimmed. The commander stood at the center of the bridge, his gaze fixed on the sea of stars ahead. "Send the message," he ordered quietly. The communications officer hesitated. "What message, sir?" He turned toward her, eyes steady. "The truth. Send it on every frequency, every band, every world that still listens. Let them see what the Council buried." Across the galaxy, thousands of screens flickered to life. Images of destruction, of human suffering, of the Council's lies filled the airwaves. Whole planets paused. Some watched in disbelief, others in guilt. And somewhere, among the noise and chaos, humanity's voice returned. The truth spread faster than the Council could suppress it. Systems began to question orders. Officers refused to fire. Old allies turned silent. The galaxy itself seemed to tremble beneath the weight of memory. Back on the bridge, the commander's expression softened for the first time. "They'll come for us now," he said quietly. The AI's voice hummed. "They already are." On the scanners, hundreds of enemy signatures bloomed like a tide of fire. The crew braced themselves. The lights dimmed, the ship's engines roared to life, and the void outside began to shimmer. The Black Ship turned toward the oncoming fleets, silent and resolute. No one spoke. No one needed to. Humanity's reckoning was only beginning. The enemy fleets appeared first as pinpricks of light, tiny, harmless stars scattered across the dark. Then the lights began to move, spreading out into precise formations. Within minutes, the entire sector was filled with the glow of engines and weapon arrays. The Council wasn't taking chances this time. They had come with everything. Aboard the black ship, tension hung heavy in the air. The crew moved with quiet focus, each one aware that the moment they fired a shot, there would be no turning back. The commander stood at the center of the bridge, his hands resting behind his back, eyes fixed on the tactical display. The map glowed with hundreds of red markers, the Council's fleets. Against them, only one single dot pulsed blue. The AI's voice broke the silence. "Council transmission incoming. Shall I open the channel?" The commander gave a slow nod. The main screen flickered, revealing the image of the Council Chancellor. Her silver skin reflected the light around her like polished glass, and her voice carried the tone of authority honed by centuries of control. "Human vessel," she began, "you are in violation of Galactic Regulation 12. You will deactivate your engines and prepare for boarding. Surrender the ship, and your crew will be treated according to protocol." No one on the bridge moved. The commander's face remained calm. "You burned our worlds, erased our history, and now you call this protocol?" he said, his voice steady but edged with cold restraint. "We didn't come for war. We came to remind you of what you did." The Chancellor's expression didn't change. "The past is no longer relevant. Humanity was given peace. You chose defiance." "Peace?" The commander took a step closer to the display. "You call silence peace? You call obedience survival?" The Chancellor leaned forward. "If you persist, you'll leave us no choice." The transmission ended. The image faded, leaving only the soft hum of the ship's core. For a long time, no one spoke. Then the commander finally said, "They never learn." In the lower hangars, technicians worked to ready the defense drones. Rows of sleek black machines hummed to life, their surfaces reflecting the dim light of the bay. A young engineer ran diagnostics, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted a power coupling. She glanced at a small photo taped to her console, a picture of her family from a colony long gone. Her eyes hardened. She whispered to herself, "For them." Elsewhere, in the crew quarters, a quiet debate was unfolding. Two officers sat across from each other, their voices low but sharp. "You think this will work?" one said. "Even if we expose the Council, they'll just twist it. They always do." The other shook his head. "Truth spreads, whether they like it or not. The black ship isn't just a weapon. It's a message. The galaxy needs to see who we really are." "But what if they never listen?" "Then we make them." The words carried a weight that hung between them long after their voices faded. Meanwhile, far from the ship, in the Council's command hub, panic was starting to spread beneath the surface of order. Admirals argued behind closed doors. Some wanted to attack immediately, others hesitated. The images the black ship had broadcast, those scenes of destruction and human suffering, had already reached thousands of systems. Civilian protests had begun on 3 Council worlds. A young alien aide whispered to her superior, "Sir, we can't suppress it fast enough. Every time we block one transmission, a dozen more appear. Human sympathizers are spreading it through trade networks." The superior rubbed his temples. "Then find their source. Find the sympathizers, make examples of them." But even as he said it, he knew it was too late. The truth was out. Back aboard the black ship, the commander gathered his senior officers in the war room. The holographic display showed the enemy fleets forming into attack lines. Every ship bore the Council's insignia, symbols of order and control. "They're moving into position," said the navigation officer. "Estimated contact in 8 minutes. The commander nodded slowly. "Hold fire until I say. We're not here to start this fight. But if they come for us, we finish it. The AI's voice chimed softly. Commander, long-range scans detect smaller vessels breaking away from the Council lines. Pattern suggests infiltration or boarding units. So they want to capture us, one of the officers muttered. They'll tear this ship apart for what's inside. The commander looked thoughtful. No, they'll try to erase it. In a small, dimly lit room deep in the ship's core, the AI's central node pulsed with faint blue light. It wasn't just a machine. It held within it the complete record of humanity's exile. Classified files, testimonies, evidence of everything the Council had done. If the Council captured it, they could erase it all. The commander turned to his second-in-command. Evacuation protocols? Ready, sir, but... She hesitated. There's nowhere safe to go. Every human outpost is under watch. He gave a grim smile. Then we make our own place. The ship trembled slightly as a shockwave rippled through space. Council ships were closing in. On the bridge, alarms flared, and the crew moved with silent precision. Shields activated, engines shifted to combat mode, and the lights dimmed to battle red. Outside, the void erupted into motion. Dozens of Council cruisers surged forward, their weapons charging, energy fields crackling like lightning. The black ship didn't move. It held position, dark and silent, as though daring them to fire first. Inside, the commander stood still, his gaze steady. Let them come, he said softly. Across the galaxy, human colonies were watching. Hidden settlements on barren moons, drifting stations in asteroid belts, old refugees who still remembered the war, all of them tuned into the broadcast. For the first time in decades, humanity saw itself not as broken survivors, but as something united by purpose. In one distant settlement, a child stared up at the flickering screen, her eyes wide. Is that real? She asked her father. He nodded slowly, his voice trembling. That's us, kid. That's who we used to be. Back in Council space, among the fleets preparing to strike, not everyone was convinced of the mission. A young alien pilot watched the black ship through his viewport, its massive dark shape floating like a shadow of judgment. His hands hesitated over the controls. What if they're right? He whispered to himself. What if we've been lied to? His commander's voice barked through the comms. All ships, prepare to engage. The pilot swallowed hard. His targeting systems locked onto the black ship. But deep down, something inside him hesitated. Humanity's broadcast had shown him things he wasn't supposed to see, truth that couldn't be unseen. He powered down his weapons. On the black ship's bridge, the sensors officer suddenly looked up. Sir, some of their ships aren't firing. The commander's eyes narrowed. Meaning? Meaning they're hesitating. They're standing down. A flicker of hope crossed the commander's face, but it vanished just as quickly. That won't stop the rest. Moments later, a barrage of light ripped through space. The first wave of Council fire struck the black ship's shields, shaking the hull. The lights flickered. Alarms blared, and smoke filled the air. But the ship held. Return fire, the commander ordered. Beams of energy erupted from the ship's flanks, cutting through the void with precision. The black ship didn't fire wildly. It targeted power systems, engines, command relays. It fought not to destroy, but to disable. Inside the chaos, the AI spoke again. Commander, a coded signal from within the enemy formation. Human signature detected. The commander froze. Human. Yes, it originates from within a Council flagship. He frowned, processing the impossible. Patch it through. The voice that followed was faint, distorted, but unmistakably human. This is Operative K9, embedded in Council command. We've been waiting for your return. You can't face them alone. They've built something worse than before. You need to see it. Static swallowed the transmission, leaving the bridge in silence. The commander stared into the void ahead, where the council fleets glowed like a sea of fire. His voice dropped to a whisper. "What have they done?" The AI responded quietly. "Whatever it is, it's coming." The black ship steadied itself, its dark hull gleaming against the distant stars. The council fleets regrouped, forming new patterns, something unfamiliar. The tension built like a storm waiting to break. And for the first time since their return, the commander felt it. Not fear, but the heavy certainty that this was only the beginning. Humanity had awakened the galaxy's memory. But somewhere beyond those fleets, something else had awakened too. The void trembled with silent fury as the black ship faced the endless wall of council warships. Hundreds of vessels hung across the stars, their weapons glowing like dying suns. For a moment, everything was still, the calm before the storm. Inside the ship, the crew moved with quiet focus, their faces pale in the dim red light. Every heartbeat, every breath seemed to echo through the steel walls. The commander stood at the center of the bridge, eyes locked on the tactical display. The enemy's formation was shifting, splitting into two curved wings that slowly encircled the black ship. It wasn't a simple attack. They were closing a trap. "Commander," the navigation officer said quietly, "if they complete that maneuver, we'll be surrounded." He didn't look away from the screen. "They think they already have us." The AI's calm voice cut through the silence. "Incoming signal from the council flagship. It's heavily encrypted." The commander's expression darkened. "Decrypt it." Moments later, the voice of the chancellor filled the air again, colder this time. "Human vessel, your defiance has reached its end. You stand before the united power of the galaxy. Deactivate your weapons, or face eradication." The commander leaned closer to the display. "You don't get it," he said softly. "We already faced that once." Without waiting for a reply, he cut the channel. The bridge was quiet again, the tension heavy and unbroken. "Sir," said the weapons officer, "they're charging their main batteries." The commander gave a slow nod. "Raise the shields. All power to forward banks." The ship groaned as energy pulsed through its frame. The lights dimmed, the air thick with static. The hum of the engines deepened to a low, thunderous vibration. Outside, the first wave hit. Blinding light exploded across the void, crashing into the ship's shields like a storm against rock. The impact rattled every deck, sending sparks raining from the ceiling. But the ship held. "Shields at 72%, the officer called. "Hold steady," the commander replied, his voice calm amid the chaos. The black ship fired back. Its cannons flared with a blue-white glow, cutting through the void with precision. Each blast tore through enemy formations, not to destroy, but to disable, disrupting power systems, blinding sensors, forcing confusion. Still, there were too many. The council fleets pressed forward, relentless. The ship shuddered under constant fire, the lights flickering as systems strained to compensate. In the engineering bay, teams worked frantically to reroute energy flows and seal damage. One of them, a young technician, was thrown to the floor as another impact rocked the ship. She pulled herself up, bleeding from a shallow cut, and kept working. "Keep those reactors balanced," her supervisor shouted. "If we lose power to the shields, we're done." "I know," she yelled back, her hands shaking as she reconnected a damaged conduit. "I'm not letting them take us down." Back on the bridge, the commander's focus sharpened. He could see the council's new formation taking shape, an arc closing around them. But something else caught his attention. A faint signal flickered on the edge of the scanner, deep behind the enemy lines. "Magnify that sector," he ordered. The image zoomed in. What appeared wasn't another ship, but something far larger. A structure. Massive, angular, pulsing with strange energy. It wasn't like any known design. The glow from its surface wasn't weapons fire, it was something alive. The AI spoke, its tone more serious than usual. "Commander, the readings are unstable. That's not a ship. It's a generator. Some kind of experimental device." The commander frowned. "What kind of device?" "Unknown. But the energy patterns match nothing in the Council's archives. It could be a weapon or..." The AI paused. "Or what?" "Or a control system." The commander's pulse quickened. "Control system for what?" Before the AI could answer, the ship lurched violently. The lights flickered again, and alarms screamed through the corridors. "Massive power surge from the Council structure," shouted the sensors officer. "It's projecting something. Waveforms spreading across space." The commander steadied himself. "Impact? Not physical. It's interfering with our systems. It's trying to breach the AI core." The AI's voice broke slightly, flickering through static. "They're attempting to override me. I am resisting, but the signal is adaptive." The bridge crew exchanged worried looks. Everyone knew what that meant. The Council wasn't trying to destroy the Black Ship. They were trying to take control of it. The commander clenched his fists. "Cut all external links. Seal the AI core manually if you have to." "Aye, sir." The engineering teams raced through the corridors, sealing bulkheads and locking down data conduits. The hum of power grew unstable, pulsing in strange rhythms. In the AI chamber, light flickered erratically. The holographic projection shimmered, its voice distorted. "Commander, I am maintaining integrity, but the signal is learning. It's rewriting itself with every defense I deploy." The commander's voice came through the intercom. "Then we fight it the same way we fight everything else, until it breaks." The AI's light steadied slightly. "Acknowledged." Outside, the Council fleets advanced again. Their smaller ships began weaving in tight formation, forming a lattice of energy. The massive generator in the distance pulsed brighter, feeding the entire armada with strange power. It wasn't just energy. It was coordination. Every ship moved in perfect synchrony, like one mind controlling thousands. The crew watched in stunned silence as the formation shifted into something beautiful and terrifying, a living storm of light and precision. "They're linked," whispered the navigation officer. "They're all connected to that thing." The commander's eyes narrowed. "Then, if we break the connection, we break their control." The plan was dangerous, almost suicidal. The generator was deep behind enemy lines, surrounded by hundreds of ships, but it was the only chance they had. "Plot a course," the commander said. "Straight through their center. We're going for that device." Gasps filled the bridge. "Sir, that's a suicide run." "Not if we move fast enough." The AI's voice returned, quieter now, almost human. "You understand the odds." "I do," the commander said, his tone steady. "But this isn't about odds. It's about choice." The ship turned, its engines roaring to full power. The sudden acceleration pressed everyone into their seats as the Black Ship surged forward, cutting through the waves of enemy fire. Beams of light and plasma shot past, grazing the hull, shaking the decks. In the lower bays, drones launched in swarms, intercepting enemy fire and clearing paths through the chaos. The ship's shields flared like molten light, absorbing impact after impact. Still, it pushed forward. "Shields at 40%, shouted the weapons officer. "Keep going," the commander replied. Ahead, the massive generator grew larger, its light almost blinding now. It pulsed like a living heart, sending waves of distortion across space. Each pulse hit the Black Ship like a hammer, rattling systems and scrambling sensors. "Sir," the AI warned, "we are entering the distortion field. Navigation will be unreliable." "Then we fly blind." The ship plunged into the field. Alarms wailed, lights flickered, and for a brief moment, everything went silent. The stars outside twisted and blurred. Space itself seemed to ripple, bending around them. Inside, the crew gritted their teeth, holding on to whatever they could as the ship was pulled in every direction. Then, just as suddenly, the distortion cleared. The generator filled the viewport, an immense sphere of black metal and blinding energy, its surface alive with shifting patterns. It wasn't just technology. It felt ancient, almost sentient. The commander stared at it in disbelief. "That's no council weapon," he whispered. "That's something else." The AI's voice flickered again, weak and fragmented. "Commander, it's broadcasting. Human code. Old Earth designations." The bridge fell silent. The commander's pulse pounded in his ears. "Are you saying the council built this using our technology?" The AI's reply came in static. "No, they didn't build it. They found it." Outside, the generator's glow intensified, spreading like dawn across the stars. The council fleets pulled back, forming a defensive wall around it. The commander's gaze hardened as realization hit him. This wasn't just a weapon. It was something far older, something the council had hidden from everyone. The AI's voice faltered. "Energy levels rising exponentially. It's preparing to activate." The commander gripped the edge of the console. "Then whatever that thing is, it's about to change everything." The stars began to tremble. The void filled with light, and the black ship surged forward, straight into the heart of it. The stars looked calm that night, scattered like diamonds across the dark fabric of space, but everyone aboard the fleet knew it was a lie. The silence before the next storm. The black ship floated at the center of the formation, its matte surface absorbing the faint light of nearby suns, making it look like a shadow given form. Humanity's hope and fury, both wrapped in steel and purpose. Inside, tension hummed through the corridors like electricity before a lightning strike. Every system check, every countdown, every pulse of the reactor added weight to what was coming. They all knew something had changed. The council's silence wasn't surrender. It was plotting. The admiral stood before the main viewport, eyes locked on the growing anomaly ahead. It wasn't natural. A distortion in space itself, expanding like a wound in reality. Reports had already confirmed it. An artificial rift, one that could bridge sectors light years apart. The council had built something new, something that defied every known rule of physics. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was a gate. And on the other side of it, thousands of warships were waiting. Humanity's earlier victories had drawn too much attention. The galaxy had decided that the black ship was too dangerous to exist. The admiral exhaled slowly, knowing what that meant. They were no longer fighting for pride or survival. They were fighting for memory, for the right of humanity to not be erased from the stars. The communications officer's voice broke the silence. "Admiral, long-range scanners confirm movement inside the anomaly. Multiple energy spikes. They're coming through." The words hit like a hammer. Around the command deck, every officer straightened, faces lit by red alert lights. The hum of the ship deepened as weapons systems came online. The black ship didn't roar. It whispered, and its whisper was the sound of controlled power. The admiral's voice stayed steady, calm, as if sheer composure could hold back the darkness. "Maintain formation. Prepare to engage on my mark. No preemptive fire. Let them show their hand first." But deep down, he knew this was more than a battle. It was a message. The galaxy wanted to see if humanity would kneel or burn. And humanity had already chosen. Then it happened. The rift bloomed open, tearing the void wide. Massive silhouettes began to emerge, ships larger than cities, bristling with weapons, shields glowing in alien hues. The council hadn't sent a fleet. They had sent an armada, unified under a single purpose. Dozens of species that once bickered among themselves now stood side by side, united by fear of a single small world that had refused to bow. The bridge fell silent. Even the hum of the black ship seemed to dim, as if it, too, understood the weight of what was about to unfold. In the midst of the silence, the admiral's gaze shifted to the tactical officer, a quiet nod passing between them. "Activate the Veil Protocol," he said. The officer hesitated, just a fraction. "Sir, that's still experimental." "So were we," the Admiral replied. And that was enough. The Veil Protocol wasn't a weapon. It was an act of defiance, a system designed to manipulate electromagnetic signatures and fold light around the fleet, rendering them nearly invisible against the black. The human ships began to fade, their outlines dissolving into the dark like ghosts. For a few seconds, it looked as though humanity had vanished. The Council ships hesitated, their formations tightening, scanning wildly for targets. The first trap was set. But then, something unexpected happened. The anomaly pulsed again. The readings spiked off the charts. Another formation emerged, smaller, faster, and unknown. They weren't Council ships. Their hulls bore no known insignia. They were sleek, sharp-edged, and alive with energy. For a moment, both fleets paused, unsure whether to engage or retreat. Humanity hadn't planned for this. The Council hadn't either. The Admiral frowned. "Identify them." The sensors struggled, data flickering across the displays. "No match in any database," the officer whispered. "Their tech is beyond Council classification." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "Then they're not from here." That realization hit harder than any weapon. For the first time, it wasn't just humanity or the Council anymore. Something else had entered the arena. One of the unknown ships emitted a sound, low, rhythmic, almost like a pulse. Not communication, not a weapon. A signal. The Admiral's gut tightened. He'd heard of this before. Old deep space signals picked up centuries ago, dismissed as myth. But they weren't myths anymore. "Brace for impact," he murmured, just as the void around them fractured again. The pulse hit the black ship, sending ripples through its systems. The lights dimmed, the hull trembled, and for the briefest second, the ship's AI flickered. Then a voice echoed through the comms, distorted but unmistakably intelligent. "Humanity altered the course, the cycle breaks." No one spoke. The sound faded, replaced by static. But the meaning lingered, heavy and cold. Whatever had just arrived wasn't here for conquest. It was here for judgment. The Council's fleet began firing, assuming hostility. Beams of energy sliced through the dark, colliding with the newcomers, but the shots simply bent, redirected into nothingness. One by one, the alien ships turned, their glowing cores brightening like stars igniting. The Admiral gritted his teeth. "They're not attacking the Council," he said quietly. "They're studying them." A tremor ran through the deck as another pulse swept through space, this time striking both fleets. Systems overloaded, communications scrambled, and ships began drifting out of formation. Chaos erupted. The Admiral held onto the railing as the ship's gravity momentarily fluctuated. "Stabilize the core," he barked. The engineers worked furiously, hands flying over controls. When the power normalized, the external view came back online, and what they saw made no sense. The anomaly had grown wider, revealing glimpses of worlds beyond, as if the fabric of the galaxy itself was unraveling. And at the center of it all, a figure, or maybe a construct, hovered, bathed in light. It wasn't physical in the human sense, but every sensor registered its presence. The AI struggled to translate, throwing out fragmented words. Origin, preservation, divergence. The Admiral stared, heart pounding. "They're testing us," he said quietly, "to see who's worthy to remain." The idea struck fear deeper than any weapon. For centuries, humanity had fought to prove its strength, its will to survive. But this was different. This wasn't a war for territory or dominance. This was a reckoning, a cosmic measure of worth. And yet, even as the realization settled, something else stirred deep within the black ship's core. The AI, silent for years, programmed for efficiency, not emotion, spoke again. "We are not subjects of cycles. We choose our path." Its tone was calm, almost defiant. The Admiral felt a chill. The ship wasn't just reacting, it was deciding. Outside, the unknown fleet began moving, aligning into a perfect circle around the anomaly. The Council ships tried to reposition, but many were already failing, their systems overwhelmed. And amidst that chaos, the black ship glowed faintly, its dark hull resonating with an unseen energy. For a brief second, it pulsed, matching the rhythm of the alien signal. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "Sir," one of them said, voice trembling, "it's like it's answering them." The Admiral didn't reply. His gaze stayed on the swirling rift, the impossible figure beyond it, and the silent ship that now seemed almost alive. Whatever was happening, humanity was no longer just part of the story. They were at its center. The galaxy watched, the unknown waited, and the black ship began to move forward, alone, straight into the anomaly. The Admiral gave one last look at the stars before the light consumed them. "Let's see if we're worthy," he whispered. Then the void swallowed them whole. The black ship plunged through the rift, swallowed by light and silence. For a moment, everything vanished, sound, motion, even the sense of time. The crew held their breath as the world around them dissolved into a blur of shifting colors and fragmented stars. Then, as suddenly as it began, the chaos stilled. Outside the viewport was a scene no one could comprehend. It wasn't space as they knew it. It was something older. The stars were too close, their light almost alive. Great rings of energy floated like ancient guardians, each pulse synchronized like a heartbeat of the universe itself. The ship drifted forward slowly, engines muted, as if the void was studying them back. "Report," the Admiral ordered, though his voice came out quieter than usual, respectful almost. The sensors showed readings that defied explanation. Gravity fields folding in on themselves, radiation levels fluctuating with rhythm, not chaos. The AI's voice returned, soft and strange. "We have exited known space. This region is uncharted, parameters, undefined." The crew exchanged uncertain glances. Humanity had crossed countless stars, broken barriers thought impossible. But this was different. The Admiral turned to the main display and whispered, "This is where it ends, isn't it?" The moment was broken when the image of the anomaly behind them shimmered, and through it, the Council Armada appeared. Somehow, they had followed. But their ships looked different now. Damaged, flickering, as if the rift had burned away part of their existence. Their formation faltered, engines sputtering, but their intent was still clear. Even at the edge of creation, they wanted humanity gone. The first shots came without warning. Brilliant energy beams tore through the void, aimed directly at the black ship. Shields flared, absorbing most of the impact, but it was clear the Council wasn't hesitating. The Admiral clenched his jaw. "Return fire! Full spread! Target propulsion and weapons!" The black ship came alive with a roar, dark cannons lighting up like lightning against the cosmic horizon. Every shot hit with precision, each one a message that humanity wasn't done yet. The two fleets clashed in a storm of color and destruction, each blow shaking the space around them. And then, in the midst of it, the alien fleet reappeared, those same unknown ships from before, forming a circle once more, pulsing with light. But this time, they intervened. The pulse turned into waves, energy bending the very battlefield. Council ships froze mid-flight, their weapons disabled, trapped in invisible fields. Even the black ship trembled under the force. The Admiral's screens filled with unreadable data, strange symbols cascading faster than translation could keep up. Then the AI spoke again, its tone deeper, steadier. "They are initiating judgment." The light grew stronger until it wasn't light at all. It was memory. Flashes of history filled the command deck like ghosts. The first human colony ship leaving Earth, the wars, the rebuilding, the long years of silence before the stars finally answered back. The crew could see it all. The light faded slowly, taking the chaos with it. When the crew opened their eyes again, the world outside had changed. The stars had returned, familiar constellations, known systems. The rift was gone, sealed as if it had never existed. The black ship drifted in silent orbit above an unmarked world, its surface glowing with soft blue oceans and untouched land. For a moment, no one spoke. The battle, the noise, the fear, it was all gone. Only stillness remained. The Admiral stood before the viewport, his reflection framed by the distant sun. "Status?" he asked quietly. The communications officer scanned her instruments. "Systems are stabilizing. Shields at half capacity, weapons offline. We're home, sir. At least, somewhere in our galaxy." The Admiral nodded, though his eyes stayed fixed on the blue planet below. "And the Council fleet?" The sensor tech shook his head. "No trace. It's like they never made it through." The silence that followed was heavy, not with sorrow, but with disbelief. After everything, the endless conflict, the fear of extinction, the impossible odds, they were alive. Humanity was alive. The AI's voice returned, softer now, almost human. "Anomaly closed. External interference ceased. I detect no remaining foreign presence." Then, after a pause, it added something it had never said before. "Congratulations." The word drew small, stunned smiles across the crew. The Admiral chuckled under his breath, though it sounded tired. "Congratulations," he repeated. "That's one way to put it." But as the crew began assessing damage, something else began to unfold. The AI activated a series of internal displays showing fragmented data, the remnants of what they'd witnessed inside the rift. Symbols, patterns, energy readings that pulsed in strange rhythms. The science officer frowned. "Sir, these aren't just readings. They're coordinates." The Admiral turned. "Coordinates to what?" The answer came from the AI. "To potential worlds, habitable, safe. The unknown entities appear to have mapped them for us." The bridge went silent again. No one knew what to say. The beings they'd feared, the ones who had judged them, hadn't destroyed humanity. They'd given them something instead, a second chance. The Admiral stared at the glowing coordinates, each one representing a possible new beginning. "Maybe that was their test," he murmured. "Not if we could destroy, but if we could endure." The words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. Humanity's greatest strength had never been its weapons or technology. It was its will to survive, to keep moving forward no matter what. The crew worked in quiet awe as the black ship descended into orbit, scanners sweeping the world below. The readings confirmed it. Oxygen, water, thriving plant life. A planet untouched by war. As they drew closer, streaks of light shimmered across the atmosphere, like echoes of the energy that had brought them here. It was peaceful, beautiful even. The Admiral stood with his hands behind his back, watching the planet grow larger in the viewport. "After all this," he said softly, "maybe this is what they wanted us to find. A place to start again." The communications officer smiled faintly. "Or maybe they wanted to see if we'd learn what it means to protect something instead of conquering it." The words hit home. The crew had all felt it, the change that had come during the battle. Somewhere between rage and survival, something in humanity had shifted. The black ship, once a weapon forged from fury, had become a vessel of endurance, a reminder that power wasn't only about dominance, it was about restraint, purpose, and choice. Hours later, as they prepared to deploy landing teams, the Admiral walked alone through the silent corridors of the ship. His footsteps echoed against the cold metal, the same halls that had once vibrated with alarms and orders. Now they were calm. He paused near the core chamber, where the AI's presence was strongest. "You could have chosen differently," he said quietly. You could have taken control when we lost power, but you didn't." The AI replied gently, "I was created to protect humanity, not replace it. You made the final choice, to move forward." The Admiral nodded, the smallest of smiles tugging at his lips. "Let's hope we made the right one." When the first shuttle touched down on the planet's surface, the air was crisp and clear. The crew stepped out cautiously, their boots sinking into soft soil. Wind carried scents of earth and life unknown. A new dawn, literally and symbolically. They planted the first human flag, not as a claim, but as a promise. The Admiral looked to the sky, where the black ship hovered in orbit, its dark hull gleaming faintly under the sun. "We came from a world that nearly destroyed itself," he said. "But maybe this time we'll build something better." As the sun began to rise, light spilled across the horizon, painting everything gold. For the first time in generations, humanity wasn't running, wasn't fighting. They were beginning. The scars of war still lingered, but hope, real, fragile hope, was finally stronger. Yet as peace settled over them, one last flicker appeared on the ship's long-range sensors, a faint rhythmic pulse, identical to the alien signal that had once judged them. Only this time it was distant, calm, almost like a heartbeat fading into the stars. The AI registered it but said nothing. The Admiral saw the signal too. He didn't order an investigation. He simply watched it fade, understanding something unspoken. The beings hadn't vanished. They were still out there, watching, not as wardens but as witnesses. Guardians of the balance that humanity had finally begun to understand. Maybe one day, when humanity was ready, they would meet again, but not as judged and judged, this time as equals. As the black ship's engines powered down, the Admiral sat in quiet reflection. Everything that had happened, the battles, the fear, the unknown, it had led them here. He thought of Earth, of the long journey that had started centuries ago. Humanity had always been restless, searching for meaning in the stars, and perhaps now they'd found it, not in conquest, but in connection. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the soft hum of the ship under his feet, the steady rhythm of something alive yet not human. "We survived," he whispered, "and maybe that's enough." The AI responded one last time, its voice softer than ever. "Survival is the beginning. What comes next is up to you." Outside, the planet turned slowly beneath them, glowing blue and green against the vast dark. The black ship, once a symbol of wrath, now drifted in quiet orbit, a guardian rather than a weapon. Humanity had crossed the edge of the galaxy and come back changed. They had faced judgment, chaos, and the unknown, and found not destruction, but understanding. In the end, it wasn't the ship's power that saved them. It was their will to endure, to adapt, to hope. The stars stretched endlessly beyond, each one holding new stories waiting to begin. And somewhere, deep within that endless light, the pulse continued, a quiet reminder that the universe was still watching. But this time it wasn't a test. It was a welcome. The black ship's engines dimmed, its shadow merging with the dawn. Humanity's wrath had forged its survival, but it was their courage that had forged their future.